Welcome back to the Real Friends podcast. If it looks like the three of us are still wearing the same things we were in the last episode, it's because we are. This is the third episode we've recorded today. So, even though they're not all coming out the same day, we do shower and we do change clothes. But this is another exciting episode where we've brought one of our friends from TikTok on. This is Nate from Entertainment Overtime. What's up, man?
Hey, how's it going, you guys? Glad to be here. Excited to talk Fantastic Four with y'all.
Yeah, very excited. This has been a very anticipated movie for us. You know, we've been Marvel fans now for 17 years at least with all the movies. And after how good I thought Thunderbolts was, I was fully, locked in and ready for this movie. So, before we get started, let's talk about your page, talk about where people can find you, the kind of things you do on there and how you got into, being a TikTok movie reviewer.
Yeah, you guys can find me all on Entertainment Overtime, directly on TikTok. I did have a YouTube channel, but that's a work in progress. Still kind of figuring out the kinks with all the YouTube stuff. But mostly all my stuff is correlated to a lot of movie stuff, but a lot of times Marvel, most specifically. I'm a diehard Marvel person. As you can see from like my background, I lived and breathed on the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man stuff.
Oh
As
yeah.
you can see, it goes on there. But yeah, I'm an absolute diehard Marvel person. I love movies. I talk my ear off with all my family too much, and they were like, "You should just do something about it." And I was like, "All right, well, I guess I'll just jump on TikTok for now." So I started off with How to Train Your Dragon, and then from there, I kind of just started moving forward. And yeah, now we're here.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, well, as you know, we're starting a Marvel series now. So, we're reviewing Fantastic Four because it just came out. But earlier today, we reviewed Iron Man and the Incredible Hulk. We're going to work chronologically. So, any of those you want to be a part of, let us know. And we want to at least do all of the MCU, probably not the TV shows, but maybe before Doomsday comes out. But I'd also, because of Doomsday and all the casting announcements, I'd kind of like to do the 20th Century Fox Marvel also. So we might just do everything. And I'm sure you'd be all about that. So,
Oh yeah, I can talk your ear off for days on those movies. So I'm here for it.
right. Awesome. Cool. Well, hey, let's dive into well, actually, let's not dive in. I want to ask you the question I ask everyone that comes on, and that is what's the last like really good movie you saw? It can be this year, it doesn't have to be like from this year, but what's the last really good movie you saw?
I mean, of course, we're talking Fantastic Four, so I would say that one. But if I was to say the last one, I think this year was Sinners. I haven't seen a movie that was as just immersive. Like I was just captured right into that universe. So like Ryan Coogler is one of my favorite directors. So getting to see what he was able to build, and again, I think that for what it's worth, vampires and that kind of story and niche doesn't get really told a lot for what it's worth. So getting to see
Yeah,
that and that he brought to it, also with the element of music that he brought into, because I'm a huge like music person too. So I really enjoyed all those. So definitely Sinners.
absolutely. Yeah, and I didn't know Ryan Coogler much before. So in college, I took a film class and we talked about Fruitvale Station. Um, and that movie blew my brain, right? Like it just was absolutely insane. And then Black Panther was the first weekend I ever worked at a movie theater. So like just the insanity of like working
Yeah.
through Black Panther and Ryan Coogler doesn't miss, man. Like Creed, Black Panther, that, and then Sinners. Sinners is a home run. It's going to be hard to beat Sinners this year. Um, I do have a couple movies ahead of it just because I'm me. My number one movie of the year is Novocaine. I thought Novocaine was one of the greatest things I've ever seen. And then the other movie right ahead of, well, there's two, is F1. I thought F1 was one of the coolest movie theater experiences I've had in a very long time. And then I actually, and apparently people aren't on the same board, I have Companion above Sinners also.
Okay.
I think Companion's amazing, but I mean, they're all good, right? The highs of this year have been very high. The lows have been pretty low, but there's been some really great films that have come out this year.
1,000,000%, absolutely. I couldn't agree. I haven't gotten a chance to see Nova King yet, but F1 was amazing. I can't deny it. F1 was just awesome.
Yeah, and I'm a Formula One nerd, so like seeing my racers on track, kind of the same feeling I had watching Happy Gilmore 2 and seeing all the professional golfers, like I'm a big sports guy, so it was huge. So if Sinners had thrown in like I don't know, professional football player or something, I'd have been like, oh, let's go. Like
Yeah.
But cool, man. Let's dive into Fantastic Four. We all talked a little bit about how we feel, so what I'd like to do is, ask you first, like, give me your initial impressions of Fantastic Four before we really dive into it.
Yeah, so for me, I was super excited. It was my most anticipated movie of the year. Having seen, the 20s, I like went through my homework. I watched the old Fox universe, so with Ian Gruffett and Chris
Yeah.
Evans, and watched the Fan Four Stick that I call it.
That's one of the few movies I fell asleep in the theater watching. That's one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
Yeah, I tried to defend it. I tried to be an apologist for it, and then I rewatched it again, and I was like, I don't know why I ever tried to do that. So definitely not a highlight of one of the movies I've watched. But yeah, this movie, I think they absolutely nailed it. I think that the world that they built and crafted, like I brought my wife to watch. We watched all the Marvel movies up to this point. She really felt like, and to me, it just felt like a movie that you could just step right in, not having watched any of the Marvel movies previously, and you could just educate yourself from this one completely. And like just from like the retro futuristic style with Jack Kirby's, influence on the movie and Stan Lee's influence, it was like a living, breathing comic. And it's funny enough that we're on the backs of 2 weeks from Superman, and we've gotten two of the most, I would say, comic book movies ever. And I just think that this one was just a celebration of that 60s retro futurism that they did with Kirby's Legacy, but also celebrating the authors of, the future with Wade and Byrne and even Hickman. I think that just this movie, just all of it was just awesome. And every sort, it exceeded my expectations from start to finish.
I'm excited to hear you say that because you're one of the few people that I've talked to that actually feels that way. I think one thing that I did really like is that it does feel like a comic book, right? Like my friends and I talked about how Superman is probably the most comic book feeling comic book movie maybe ever, right? And Fantastic Four kind of did that too. There's some stuff about Fantastic Four that I really didn't jive with. But I still had a very fun time. But we went through, and this will give everyone a snippet of how I feel about the movie. We went through everything since Endgame and kind of ranked them a little bit in another podcast I'm on. And I actually had this one only above the Marvels since Endgame came out.
Oh.
Yeah, it's so I'm excited that you liked it. I'm excited this isn't going to be a sounding board of all of us with the same opinion. I'm excited about that.
All
Um,
right, all right.
so yeah, let's get into it, right? Let's talk about maybe we don't have to go bit by point with the movie. Let's maybe talk about what was good and then wasn't so good. So I think Galactus was sweet. Like especially compared to the
Yeah.
last time, like he was just a smoke, Like I thought what they did with Galactus was very, very cool. The scenes with him might be the most captivating in the movie for me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I think it was good. I think Galactus was definitely a standout. I think Ralph Ineson, all the roles that he's done, I think that voice, like, I was just, for me, when I saw the first introduction in that scene, I was just kind of like floored on,
yeah.
he wasn't a cloud finally. We actually got to, they leaned into the fact that
Yeah.
he's a weird looking dude in a gigantic suit and he's a cosmic god. So I thought that was great.
Yeah. The scale was really, really cool. And the eyes, right? When they first revealed
Yes,
the eyes, I was like, oh man, give it to me. I want more.
yes.
I would say probably my favorite shot. So I really love the Silver Surfer. I know a lot of people like weren't thrilled with the fact that it's Shallow Ball, right? That it's the female Silver Surfer. But I thought Julie Garner was great in this. And probably the coolest thing in the entire movie, and honestly, one of the coolest shots I've seen in the MCU is her chasing them through Galactus's ship on the lava with the surfboard. Dude,
Yes.
That was
No,
cool.
that was awesome.
listen, that brought so, like, again, that whole sequence alone, I was just floored like I would have my jaw on the floor with it because I was like, I haven't seen visuals this good in a Marvel movie, and the fact that she was surfing on not only like the lava itself, but also like she was surfing on a freaking black hole. Like I thought
Yeah.
that was just. I was like, yo, this is some sort of, I don't know what they were doing and what they were cooking there, but they were definitely in their bag when they were doing that one.
Yeah, it's kind of wild to me because I feel like we have such awesome, awesome CGI moments like that. Then, in my opinion, we had some ones that looked pretty rough. Like anytime the Thing was holding the baby, it looked terrible. The Thing out in the street, like when he's talking to like Rachel Rosman or whatever, like that looked bad. Like there were certain parts of this that I was like, how did they make this look better in 2006 than it does now? But then there's other parts like you're saying, like the Thing himself looked incredible. Johnny, when he's flaming on, looked awesome.
Yeah.
The final battle, like that was the best personification of Reed Richards and his powers that I've ever seen.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. I think that for me, I really I know that people have their fatigue with Pedro, but like this one, like he solidified himself. Like there's a reason why he gets casted in these roles, and it's not just because he's just a face. Like no, he knows how to play the character. He does his research, and I think that this is the most, if not one of the more accurate versions interpretations of Reed Richards we've gotten. So I absolutely thought you're absolutely right. You know, getting to see that you know arrogance, but like also that softness and the intelligence that he brought. I thought he was great.
I think one failing point of the movie for me with Reed Richards is that, and maybe it's the way Pedro played him, I don't know, but to me, Reed Richards is the smartest man in the universe, right? And I didn't get
Hmm.
that from this. I got that a lot from what they told us, like how he designed all these different things, but he didn't, like Ian Grufford to me was probably a better Reed Richards. Like he, I mean, he was kind of, I don't know. I don't know if you can do that in this universe because it's very similar to how Tony played, or sorry, Robert Downey Jr. played Tony Stark, right? It has how Ian played him.
Hmm.
So if you had that, it'd kind of feel like they're doing the same thing. Um, but yeah, he to me he doesn't seem like he's smarter than Tony Stark. He doesn't seem like he's smarter than Bruce Banner. I don't even know if he's smarter than Doctor Strange in this, but that could just be me, right?
It's a fair criticism. I think that it depends on the taste. Like for me, I could say that there were some. I really wish like that they leaned a little bit more with showing the science part. Like we got a lot of him just. Sometimes I was watching him in the movie and I'm like, he's just scribbling. I'm like, and at one point I'm like, he's just scribbling stuff
Yeah,
just for the sake of it.
yeah, right.
And I think that there's it depends on your taste. Like so for me, having read the comics and seeing how they've taken from Ian to Miles Teller to Pedro now, I think that there's an argument to be had that yeah, I think that Ian Grufford does do a really good job on evoking also that intelligence because there's a lot more moments I think in those early days that you can play with the origin story and seeing that hey he's not just Stretch, he's super duper smart, like he's not
Yeah,
just he doesn't just only get the girl, like he gets the girl because he knows how he knows his power. But I think more when it comes to Reed Richards, it's the power of his brain, the more his stretching ability. So like
sure.
I think there is an argument. I think Pedro does need a little bit more time in that thing, and that's where I feel like in this movie, on the criticism part that I saw with it, is that this movie needed, to me at least, it needed like 20 or 15 minutes more. I think
Sure.
that there was a lot left on the cutting room floor in the movie, and I feel like there was just some pacing issues that they had within it that I feel like they could have fleshed out some of the scenes. But by all means, I think that the final product we got is really good. It's a really good take on it. I just feel like it could have made it a little bit longer.
Sure. And I think the idea that this isn't an origin story, right? Which is really cool coming off the back of Superman, because Superman's not an origin story either, right? Which is nice because, guys like oh my gosh, what is his name? The dude that directed Superman, James Gunn. James Gunn has said there's like things we don't ever have to see on screen again, and it's most origin stories, right? He's like, we don't need to see Uncle Ben ever die. Spoiler alert for Super Spider-Man, I guess.
Yeah.
We don't need to see Martha Wayne's pearls get snapped. We don't need to see this. We don't need to see Krypton explode again. And yeah, I don't think we need to see the Fantastic Four origin again. But what's nice about this is we kind of got that. Like I thought the one of the most interesting aspects of this movie was the Ted Gilbert and the TV show host when
Mhm.
he's talking about them and talking how they came to be, but we didn't have to get a full 45 minutes to an hour of that. It could just be real quick clips. I thought that was really interesting, but I don't know which way I go on this for the idea that I think it's 4 years after they got their powers, right? So
Yes.
so to me, there's one of two things that should happen, and maybe one of them did, is that Reed Richards should be pretty confident in who he is now because he's been doing this for 4 years. Or is Pedro playing it this way because he's seen so much crap in 4 years that he's kind of like, what do I do? He's like, do I promote the earth? Do I try to protect my family? Like, I don't know. And to me, I thought, and I haven't read all the comics, so I'm definitely not as up to it as you. I thought at one point Reed Richards becomes the leader of the Avengers, right?
Hmm.
And I don't
Yeah,
think this Reed Richards could ever do that. I mean, he's not even the leader of the Fantastic Four. Sue Storm is.
yeah. I think that fair, like that's actually a really good point. Like I feel like there's a because they already had mentioned. I know that going into the next movie, which they're going to appear as a Doomsday, they mentioned that he's going to be a leader in some aspect of it, and I think there is a play into that, and that's where I feel like I think that they needed to lean a little bit more into that dynamic, like what made them who they are. Why is he the way he is? Why is he so fair with being able to just give up his son for the greater good of the universe, and just
Right.
why he makes certain decisions on it. Because again, when we jump into it, the next time we see them in Doomsday, we're gonna have to immediately click with all these characters, and now they're one shared universe. They're in one culmination of everything that we've been seeing going on with the multiverse saga. And I think that I think that this movie suffers from the fact that we're getting thrown into that, and then it suffers from the fact that we're not going to get another movie in between. They're just going to jump right
Yeah.
into the end of it. And
Right.
so that's where I feel like they needed to do something else to craft within that time frame with Reed, or maybe include some of the scenes that I think that they cut out with him, because there's little moments in there, like from the trailer. They did a lot of trailer stuff that they showed. I was like, man, they're showing a lot in these trailers, and I was kind of getting to the point where I'm like, I think we're seeing too much. And
Yep.
then when they gave the final product, a lot of those scenes were gone. And I was like,
Yeah.
well, where's this scene? Where's this?
Like
So I could
where's
see
Red
where,
Ghost? Like Red Ghost is just completely gone, right?
yeah, like they completely cut out John Malkovich. I was like, man,
Yeah.
I love John Malkovich and anything
Me
he does. And
too.
I think that, and again, he would have been in that first, early kind of 15 minutes, them fighting Giganto and all that stuff. But it just goes on like the rogues gallery of like, they have all these rogues gallery. They have clearly all these established enemies. What's motivating them to stop them? What's their motivation behind this world? What's their connection to this universe? And what's their why?
Yep. I agree. And I think so I'm gonna have to watch this movie again. I watched it twice and I still kind of feel the same way I did about it, but I think the biggest disappointment to me is that what you just said, we're going right into Doomsday, right? Now I know Spider-Man is now happening before Doomsday, but that to me that's not going to feed into that much at all, right? So why did we enjoy Infinity War and Endgame and even Age of Ultron so much? Because we had so many years of movies tying in, getting ready, setting up Thanos. Like, I mean, you know, Thanos isn't in much, right? Like, he's in post-credit scenes. He's a little bit in Guardians of the Galaxy. He's not a ton, but he was an overarching fear. For me, this movie needed to set up Doom as why we should care that he's such a big villain, and we got none of that. And so to me, the idea that I know they want to rely on the fact that, hey, we don't want you to have to watch 18 years of movies to understand this movie. So I enjoyed the aspect of, hey, we can just launch into it. The problem is this is your last movie trying to set up an inciting incident for Doomsday. And my excitement for Doomsday, I thought should have been peaked in this, and it wasn't at all, especially when all we got, again, spoiler alerts, but it's a reaction podcast, get used to it. The mid-credit scene, we see Doctor Doom. We don't even see his face, and that's not an exciting thing for anyone because they already announced a year ago that Robert Downey Jr. is coming back as Doctor Doom. So why didn't we get anything with him? And again, in your extra 15 to 20 minutes, they could have done something with him, right? Or what I thought was going to happen was when they were pushing Galactus in, instead of Silver Surfer being Deus Ex Silver Surfer, it would have been Doctor Doom. That would have been sick. And that would have
Yeah,
probably
that would have been
saved
really
this
cool.
movie
That
for
would,
me.
yeah. And that's actually really cool. And I think that, man, that's actually a really good point. That's such a good point. That would have been really cool. Like for me, seeing how you're right, like we're going right into Doomsday, and like everything that's they're setting everything up, and then you get that big reveal in the end, and then we don't even, like you said, we don't even get to see his face, but we get to hear that right now. That was Downey Jr. That was him there. That was him. And then, but like if for me, as someone that was watching the movie, and I've already, yeah, I've seen it twice, and I want to see it again actually. So,
Sure.
um, but there's those little moments, and I kept saying it to my wife even after, and I've been doing like I want to start. I'm recording videos on it. Is those little clips of Latveria and that empty seat,
Yes.
and
Right.
seeing those moments where he's not there. And so to me, and in my theories that I do, and I feel like that's where I feel they're kind of just relying on audience intelligence at that point, not kind of seeing it as of, this is, we already announced it as Doom. So now you guys can start piecing things together because they're kind of rushing to the end because they just want to get over this hump already. And so when you have now those little moments of an empty seat, and we know Doom is the leader of Latveria from the comics and everything else, that leads me as just someone who's read it, but again, a regular moviegoer or someone who's casually watching the Marvel for just the movies, they're not going to know that. But like
Right.
for me, I'm going to know that, hey, this Doom is clearly from their universe. That Doom that's at the end of the post-credit scene has to have some sort of connection to them. And to me, I'm starting to puzzle piece this together and being like, wait a minute, they probably had their fights already. Who's to say that in the comics, Reed and Victor Von Doom share a dorm room together? So who's not to say they already had that and they already had that established relationship? So
Sure.
I do think that this movie does let you down on your case of, yeah, it doesn't really, you're kind of just get ready for Doomsday. That's it. Because Spider-Man has nothing to
Yeah.
do with it. It's going to be grounded.
Right.
So you got to just kind of have to be, all right, here you go. You're going right into Doomsday. And you kind of have to take Thunderbolts, take this and say, here you go.
Yeah. And that's to me that's a shortcoming because yes, you're making this for comic book fans, but like, not only that aspect where, it relies on your intelligence a lot or your knowledge, but also Franklin Richards putting him in this movie when people don't like casual comic book fans don't have any idea he's the most powerful being in the Marvel universe. Like that little
Yeah.
baby is the most
Yeah.
powerful thing in the world. We don't really get that. I mean, yeah, he brings his mom back to life. Cool. Galactus kind of mentions it, but like this movie was relying on you to have a lot of knowledge. And to me, that's a shortcoming because if you want, especially where Marvel's at right now, and the end of Thunderbolts having the Fantastic Four coming from another dimension, this movie had to do something to tell us why. This movie had to like anything at the end like maybe Galactus actually takes Franklin. This movie to me couldn't it tried way too hard to make this a movie that would live on its own, and to me that made it a shortcoming because it just wasn't as good then. I don't need connected universe all the time, but I need to understand why I care about Doomsday. That's why the beginning of Infinity War was so insane with uh I never say his
Yeah.
name right, Thanos killing Loki, right? And doing all these things
Yeah.
because we know how bad of a villain he is. At this point, all we know about Doctor Doom is that he's got a metal mask and he likes talking to babies. Like we we really and Doctor Doom
Yeah.
is probably the coolest villain in Marvel. And this movie did nothing to I was sure they were going to do something with Doom. I didn't think he'd be the main villain, but I was sure they're going to do something and they didn't. And that bothered me.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I was on that same camp. Like I felt like there had to have been some connection with Doom. I kept running my theories in my head before the movie came out. I was like, there has to be some sort of involvement where Doom possibly is in this movie for like again like a 15-minute segment, or maybe in the end of the movie he's been pulling strings here. My
Right. Like he's the reason Silver Surfer came. He did something, like yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I had a theory that, he was actually maybe communicating to Galactus, that maybe Galactus already knew that Doom was a possible threat here, or he was already working in tandem with Doom and saying, I need you to go steal Franklin because I need him to go do this, to go do
Right.
X, or I need him so I can start setting my grounds for this. Because again, he's such an important character. He's the most iconic Marvel villain. He's basically the essence of Darth Vader to what is Star Wars to Marvel. So you need to establish like it's going to be hard. I think for as a comic fan, I'm excited and I know
Sure.
what they're going to do with him. I'm excited to
Sure.
see that, but I can see where the shortcomings come from just casual moviegoer or casual Marvel fan. Like, how are we supposed to care about this man? Are we really supposed to believe that he's this cosmic threat? He's this multiversal threat. Like you have Thanos, who was a threat to the entire universe. That's one universe where he was set up. Infinity War was all about him getting the stone, snapping his fingers, winning.
And he was
Now we have
pulling
to go into
strings, right? Like he was pulling the strings with the villain
Yeah.
in Guardians of the Galaxy and different things like that. Like I don't know if they just didn't want to repeat the same formula, and that's fine. But I needed more. I really did.
No, and it's a 100% a great criticism to it. I think that I think that's where I lean into where Marvel really panicked, and I think that's where they were thrown for a really bad loop, and they just kind of Feige said all these interview things, and I have that I mentioned that. It's like he said, oh, we were already pivoting, we were looking to do it since Ant-Man. I was like, you guys weren't. No
No,
offense,
you
you
weren't.
guys weren't.
No, you weren't.
That's just you're trying to save face here because you know that at the end of the day, like when they announced years ago that it was going to be Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars, everyone kind of looked at it, even myself, being like, "How are you going to do Secret Wars but without Doom?" Like he's in both iterations in 1984 and 2015. Doom was the villain,
Yeah.
especially in 2015. And so if you're going to go ahead and now pivot, out of panic because again, you don't have Jonathan Majors because he did what he did, his stupidity, even though it was proven like again, everyone's asking for recast, but no, it's closed.
It's done.
So
Yeah.
now you're playing catch up, and now you have to play catch up on trying to establish this villain that we're just gonna have to start caring about in, like you said, just one movie, and it's literally in about a 2 minute segment that you see.
Yeah. Yeah. Not even, right? Not even. Yeah. So
Yeah,
yeah, I don't know. I understand the panicking thing. I was talking to my one friend about this, and he's been saying this for a long time, and I'm on board now. I think Marvel needs to move away from Kevin Feige. I think if they had handed the keys to Marvel to James Gunn like DC just did, I think they missed the ball. Dude, DC picked a perfect time to make a good movie because Marvel's been struggling
hmm,
for so long. Now, I will say Thunderbolts for me is a top 5 Marvel film, right? I know it didn't
yeah,
blow open the box office, but Thunderbolts was incredible.
unfortunately, yeah. Yes,
But this movie needed to hit, and they always say we're not worried about Marvel failing until an Avengers movie fails. I don't think Doomsday will fail. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that they were starting to get hot again, and now it
mhm.
feels like they're colder than they've been because Fantastic Four for me just missed it. My friend said it, and honestly, I agree with him. This was a colossal failure by Marvel with how excited people were. They even released it after Superman to keep the hype of the superhero summer on, and I don't even think it holds a torch to Superman. I really don't.
That's fair. I think for me, actually, it's funny. Like, I'm glad that I'm getting like a different perspective. Like for me, I like Superman a lot. I walked out of Superman being very like I'm not a big Superman. I'm not a big DC person, but I do
Sure.
enjoy their stuff. Like I enjoyed. I think Man of Steel is very much misunderstood, and it's one of the best comic book movies and Superman movies out there. But when I watched Superman again, I actually felt like it lost the value went for me down. I just feel like there was
Okay.
some character. I feel like there were some choices within Superman that were being done, and then for me, I love James Gunn, and I think James Gunn is awesome, and I still think that Superman is a good movie, and I'm not taking it away. I'm excited to see where they go forward with it.
Yeah.
My thing is, I just hope that he doesn't. For me, I don't think he should handle Superman. I think that they should find someone else because James Gunn's really good at taking oddball type characters that no one knows about, or
Like
like
the
he made us
Guardians. Yeah.
like the Guardians or the Suicide Squad, and then you have someone like, for example, he threw in Guy Gardner. Not at least for me, I didn't ever think we were gonna see a Guy Gardner let alone a Superman movie ever. For me, I thought Fantastic Four, and like you said, going into Kevin Feige, I do think it's time for him to step down. I think that he's had his line is too thin at this point. He's doing too much. There's a lot of things that he's trying to get a hands up in, and I do think it's time that it's to get a fresh perspective. And I think that that's where I'm really pushing along the. I think his name is Brad Winderbaum. He's leading the television front. He does all the Marvel television shows right now. I
Okay.
think that they need to go and start leaning on him a little bit more because yeah, you may have your problems, but I can name like, for example, X-Men 97 was a hit for me. Even though it was animated, X-Men 97 was
Phenomenal.
per-
Yeah.
perfection to me. Um, Loki season one and season two were absolutely gorgeous to me. They were such great storytelling there. Um, there was another show that I was really big on. Um, but yeah, just like as a whole, like I think that they need to start doing a little bit more of let's get other inputs here. Let's let it in. Let's let other people that live and breathe these comics that know the stories let's go and lean on them a little bit more. Let me not just take a hold of the ring because I'm Kevin Feige, I'm the president, and I have final say.
Yeah.
So
I mean, bring in, one thing that James Gunn did is he brought in comic book writers, like bring some of these dudes in. Like, do something with it because they're always going to sell tickets, but at a certain point when you have original IP performing so much better than you do Marvel IP, right? Like, most of the top movies this year
mhm,
are original IP, like Sinners, F1, things like that. Like, and something F1 did that I really really appreciate is they looked at, okay, this F1 as itself is an IP. It's the most popular sport in the world other than soccer, right? But
mhm.
what Joe Kosinski did, he was like, we need to make a movie that F1 fans will enjoy, but that the casual person can watch and enjoy. What they did with this was like, hey, casual fans might be like, oh, pretty colors, cool fight scenes, but they're not going to understand what's going on. For the most part,
Mhm.
and bringing in Franklin Richards to me was bold. It was a bold move.
Yeah, the Franklin Richards was, you're getting introduced to a character that have godlike powers,
Yeah,
and you have a character that is so powerful, and you're just throwing him into this because you need him for your next story,
right.
and you're kind of already planning for him in your next story. And from this, you're supposed to care about this character from the jump. Like, hey, it's she's pregnant, and who doesn't love a family dynamic and that kind of mother dynamic with a new child coming in. So they try to
Sure.
lean on that. But then, like you said, like you're told by Galactus, because Galactus has to be the one to narrate that scene. He has the power cosmic. So like for Marvel fans as readers, we were already like, oh, they mentioned it. And then
Yeah,
as someone who doesn't know, they're gonna have to be like, well, what does that mean? What are we saying here? Are we saying that he's a god? Are we saying that he's going to take this? Like, what's his whole purpose here? And then now you're left to go into Doomsday being like, all right, so he clearly has this power. One alone that we know is that he can heal, he can regenerate, he can revive people. That's something you do. But like, how is that going to be used now going forward? And so that's where I feel like it's gonna, like, that move, like Doomsday, and like I said, like that, like you said, it's not gonna fail because again, it's Marvel. They did that whole entire 8 hour stream where they showed all the seats, and you were just waiting, waiting, waiting. As someone who waited that whole 8 hours was pain. It was like pulling
yeah.
teeth, but getting to
I'm
see
glad.
all the.
I'm glad I saw the highlights and didn't watch the whole 8 hours.
Listen, that was such pain. I was like, all right. I was like, all right, 15 minutes. We were all there, like doing the math. All right, we're 15 minutes in. When's the next seat? Now we got those seats. We got the X-Men announcement, and we got that. So like, people are like, oh, so how are you bringing in the X-Men? What does that even have to do with it? And so now you have to go back. There's your homework. Now you got to go back to, a movie like The Marvels, for example, where that's going to be your catalyst now. A movie
Yeah,
that very minimal people went to go watch because it wasn't received very well. It got some acclaim. It wasn't the greatest, in my opinion. It was better than the
sure.
first one, but it was fun. But for what it's worth, it wasn't this amazing movie. But now
Not at all.
you literally have to go back. You don't even have to watch it. Just watch the
Yeah.
post-credits scene. That's your
It
catalyst going to Doomsday.
it's almost like they were banking on this movie's not that good, but wait till the X-Men appear at the end. We promise it'll be sweet. Um
Yeah.
and it worries me about Doomsday that they don't even have the third act written yet. Like, and it's supposed to come out the same day as Dune 2. One of them has to move, and I don't think Marvel can afford to move, right? Like, Marvel can't go over a year without this movie. When it was supposed to come out in May next year, they can't move it to May of the following year.
It's funny because I wouldn't be opposed to it, but like you said, I don't think it can move. They have to have this move, and I think it's because this movie's so big and they're doing
Right.
so much with it. And I still believe that they're out there still trying to finalize deals. They're still trying to get new, former cast members. I'm 100% on the camp that they're just trying to finalize certain characters and they don't know how to finish it yet because there's characters that haven't signed on yet, and they're catalyst to the end of the movie. And so like, for example, like even in that 8 hour stream that they did, I was expecting, characters like Famke, I'm forgetting her last name, but Jean Grey from the original X-Men movies, and
Yep.
Halle Berry. Um,
Even
what's it
Tom
called?
Holland. Tom Holland's not a part of it.
Exactly, Tom Holland, which I'm gonna believe that he's got to be because he's such a key character with that whole connection with Robert Downey Jr. Tony Stark. Like he needs to be in it. But
And he
even in
sells tickets. Like even
exactly
Spider-Man next year is going to make $1 billion for sure.
1 1 million%, even with like the fact that they're announcing Punisher coming in and
Yeah.
Savage. Suppose the rumor going around is that Savage Hulk is making a return, and I think that they need to. And even with that one, like they don't even announce. I don't know if I saw even Mark Ruffalo on those seats, and even Benedict
No.
Cumberbatch. Like none of those seats were announced. And I feel like in those movies, especially in Doomsday, he's key. Like especially Doctor
Right.
Strange, he's super important to that storyline. And I just feel like that whole third act that they're doing, I do think it's something to be afraid of. I do think that that's something that we should be speculatory about. We should like especially Marvel people should be a little bit right on the edge of caution there because you have a third act and you're telling me that we're now jumping into Secret Wars, which I've always said that they need to do Secret Wars. To me, Marvel would be smart to split those up into two movies.
Oh
Don't do
yeah.
like you can't do that whole comic run in just one movie, especially with you're just announcing Doom and then you're supposed to immediately care that he's God Emperor Doom. He's a literal god in Secret Wars.
Right.
I feel like you need to set it up into two movies. But again, it's worrisome. Yeah, the whole entire writers end that they're not done yet.
Yeah. For sure. I do want to just because like of the harping on Fantastic Four, I do want to talk about I want to get your opinion on my absolute least favorite scene in the movie and then you've been quiet. I want you to talk, but my my least favorite scene in the entire movie is when the protesters are outside the Baxter building and Sue Storm walks out and gave what I thought was a horrendous speech trying to tie
Okay.
them all in. I hated it. And I get what they're doing because what they're trying to do is they're trying to show us that, hey, in Doomsday, that's what these people are going to be. They're going to come and they're going to try to be the glue to bring people together to fight against Doom. But I thought the way it was written, I wouldn't hate on Vanessa Kirby. I love Vanessa Kirby, but I hated that scene, dude.
Wow. For me, that's funny. So again, I'm getting different, which I love. I love getting. This is why I love movie and film talk, everything. I thought that scene was really strong. To me, I thought that was a really great scene evoking the character and the leadership of Sue Storm. I think that character, like it really lent itself to the moment of this is who we are. I think that the line alone that everyone keeps talking, I won't sacrifice my son for this world, but I won't sacrifice this world for my son. I think that was a catalyst to like the whole entire messaging of who the four are and what they're messaging behind being the leaders and the only heroes of the world. But I do see where you're saying I didn't think of it from that aspect, but now saying it like that, it does make sense because the four are going to be this family dynamic where they're going to be the glue that kind of holds the Avengers together and they need to be the ones to rally everyone and be the battle cry to go against Doom. And again, that's where my whole knowledge of like that's the most likely where they're going to be the talk of, hey, they knew Doom, they know Doom, they have history with him, so here's how we combat it, here's how we can fight him together, we know him, follow us, lean on us, and we can do this together.
Well, and so to me, is the beginning of Doomsday going to be the Fantastic Four losing to Doom? Because what I thought this movie was going to be is that I guess my issue is expectations, right? When you show me in Thunderbolts at the end that Fantastic Four is coming, that tells me they got their asses kicked and had to leave Dodge, right? And then when I heard about Galactus, I was like, oh, maybe Galactus destroyed their world and they had to leave, right? So now I don't know, right? With the anticipation of Fantastic Four at the end of Thunderbolts, and then knowing who Doom was and knowing Doomsday is coming, I don't know. I mean, I can keep harping on it, but I guess my thought is Doomsday. Are we going to have to see them what I wanted in this movie at the beginning of that? We're going to have to see Doom kicking their ass and making them leave the planet? Like, I don't know. I don't know how we start that movie.
So for me, one of my again running theories that I have for that is I think that post credit scene that they did for that movie is actually similar to the way that Thor Ragnarok worked, where Thor Ragnarok ended with the ship coming up and like that was the catalyst leading into Infinity War.
Right.
And so I feel like this scene is literally the movie Doomsday is gonna pick up immediately right from that scene, I feel like. And because the reason I'm leaning on that is because as you know, we as everyone who stays for the post credit scene and everything, when you running through the whole entire, everything that going on, the music was listed, right? And I'm always someone that likes to look at all the tracks that they have for the soundtrack. But one of the things was the Alan Silvestri score for Doom. And the thing that was on the end that really got to me was the question mark. And then what also got to me was also the fact that when Vanessa Kirby, watching the post credit scene again, I was like, and I saw Vanessa Kirby's body language and kind of reading the room of what she was in. To me, in my theory, she didn't look like someone that was, I need to kick your ass right now. To me, this looks like someone that is, what are you doing here? Almost to the aspect of, I know you, like almost like a scene of like, why are you here, Victor? Like, I feel like that's where we're gonna lean into, like, what are you doing here? Why are you here? Like, what are you touching my son for?
Yeah, she
And
seemed a
so
little scared too, right? So that tells me in the 4 years between the movie and the post-credit scene, something had to have happened.
100%. Like, I feel like I that's why I feel like it leaned in. Like, I think that would have been good to have Galactus and Doom have some sort of connection, because I feel like Doom must have having a storyline where Doom had spoken to Galactus or communicated, and now seeing that, wait a minute, this child may be the key for me. So now he knows that the child exists, knows what the child's power sets are, know that he's involved with the team, and then now him going in there, and I think that the aspect of him, like, again, the way that the scene is shot with him like touching the face and you can't see it, everyone knows that Doom's face is disfigured.
Right.
And you're not going to want to hide Robert Downey Jr.'s face. If you're paying him $100 million, you're not hiding his face for all the movie. You're going to have scenes where you're going to have him take off the mask, which I don't really like the fact that they're going to do that, but you're going to have him taking off the mask. So
My
I feel like what
theory
they
is he's
probably,
not even going to wear the mask in Doomsday. I don't think the mask is going to be on until Secret Wars. I really don't.
which would, listen, I would hate that. I would really hate the fact
Same.
that they would do that, because it takes away from the character. Like, that mask is so iconic. It's like, imagine Darth Vader without his mask on and you just see, his disfigured face. Doesn't make sense.
Right.
So, like, I feel like with that, I feel like there's going to be times where he could take, like you said, the mask is going to be off for a lot of it. Like, he's using it to manipulate the heroes on 616 to be like, look, it's me, Iron Man. It's Tony. You know me. You know who I am. You could trust me. And so, like, him putting his hand on his face, I think it's key that he was clearly healing his face. Must have been some sort of case where there was some sort of damage. Maybe that's where, again, that the pieces weren't,
Oh, I didn't even
the
think
pieces
about that.
the pieces weren't filled in those moments, where the pieces of, maybe they knew him beforehand. They knew his face of, that he was either disfigured, or they knew there was an accident. And then now being healed, they're going to see him and be like, what, this is you. Like, what do you mean? This is what you look like. Maybe there's a history behind, maybe him and Vanessa, where they may have dated, they may have had a connection, they may have been, partners in the past. And there's just a lot of questions. And I think that that's where I think the post credit scene, you have to look at it from a really deep lens of what they're setting up. And I think that that's where they laced in the Latveria moments and everything else within they did in the movie.
Sure. Weigh in.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, but let's take it from somebody's point of view that didn't read all the comics. I entirely agree with Alex also, because, I didn't read all the comics. I love the movies, don't get me wrong. There's some comics that I know, but I was told yesterday by my son over here of who Franklin was. I didn't know him. I didn't know he was the most powerful being on the universe. And I watched that whole movie not knowing that until the very end. And then he brought his mom back to life. But, how old is he going to be by Doomsday? Is he going to be the most powerful being on the universe at 4 years of what be 5 years old if they go by 1 year? Or they're going to have to take this out like several years and at least make him a teenager, or or does he uh, get older, just like over months, and it's actually years or something for him.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know.
one theory I've heard that I would have liked for them to expand on a little, maybe they will later, is, Sue Storm was 7 months pregnant when they went to space, right? And then she's in Galactus's presence and she goes into labor. So it would have been interesting, like, Reed Richards keeps testing him for anomalies and there isn't anything. Then they're in the presence of Galactus and he causes the birth to happen, and somehow because of that gives him that power. right? And then they notice it when they get back. That would have made that make a lot more sense. At that point, it was just like, oh, he forced her to have the kid so he could take it, you know?
Mhm.
And
Yeah, no, it's definitely. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
uh, something that something that Aiden over here, Aiden's very shy. And
No.
something that he had told me earlier is that what did Galactus want to do with him? Did he want to eat him?
I think
Or,
he wanted him to take the mantle.
well, that's what I thought too.
Yeah.
And, you know, and he made another strong point. I loved Galactus. Galactus was awesome. I mean, I thought that he was, coming into New York City or whatever. I thought he was like really, it was phenomenal. But, you know, how does he devour worlds if he's only as tall as a building? Is it his ship that devours the world?
It seemed that way.
Because he has them two like plugs that go into his back. And
Mhm.
so when he gets into his ship feeds him.
Okay.
That's what I'm taking from it.
Yeah, because at least in this universe, the ship makes the matter into like lava that
Sustains him.
Yeah.
And coming from like a movie lover, maybe not I'm big on Marvel. Don't get me wrong. I watched every single Marvel movie. I love it. That's why Alex has me on. But not knowing all the comics that go beyond it, that's where I'm confused. They didn't tell enough in this storyline. Like, you know what I'd love to see though? I would love to see little snippets like throughout the year, like them coming on with like, on Disney Plus or whatever, and throwing a 10-minute segment on, to show different storylines.
They used to do that. What was
Yeah, they used to do that.
what was that called? They would
I
do
forget
that
that.
with like Iron Man and Thor, like
Yeah,
with
I knew it was that.
with Coulson.
There were-
I forget what that was called.
They were.
Yeah, it was with Agent
I think they were
Coulson.
called like
And
one.
One shot.
one
That's
shots
it.
or whatever.
Yeah.
I
That's it.
think going through this next year, I think that would be a help to Marvel fans that aren't like comic book fans.
Yeah, I think that would have been. I think that's a really good idea. I think it's a really good point, actually. I would love to see them come back with that. I think that would be awesome. I think being able to do and just have fun with the world. Again, you have no connections to it. You clearly know that this world isn't going to be the end game here. Like, no pun intended. But you know that this isn't going to be. This isn't going to be the world there. So like, I think that would be really cool if they threw in little segments of the 828 of the Fantastic Four, so they can fill in those missing pieces to get in. Because again, I do think that you're right. I think that there is moments where again you have to lean into a lot of like the comic knowledge and stuff, and you have to know what the storyline is to those movies in order to understand completely. Because like you said, like just seeing the ship again. In the comics, there's cases of yes, there's the ship. The ship does help Galactus consume and eat and feed, but then there's other iterations where because since he's a cosmic god, he can grow and shrink at will. So like again, you see him in the ship. He's this huge entity, and you can see how big the ship is from that scene when they're flying away. Like so, he's massive. And then when you get down, when he comes to Earth, he becomes like a kaiju essentially. He becomes this monster, and. Which I think for the movie it worked. I think that's because again I like the fact that they did small scale, the practical effect with him actually being in the suit and him actually walking. I thought that was really cool filming. I think that was awesome to see that they did that. But I do think you have to lean into your knowledge of like, wait a minute, he was like huge. Like this was massive when we first saw him. Now he's kind of small and he's shrunken himself down, and like you said, like why again he's coming down to look for this child. Like why wouldn't you want to be this as massive as you can be to find and not let no one stop you in your way? So again, I do think there's a lot of things that they should have filled in, and I can see your point, and I do think that those are things to consider going forward.
Yeah. I think it kind of boils down to just, how much comic knowledge you have versus don't. And I do think that in a movie you need to lean more into, kind of. I used to work in customer service a long time, and our motto was assume everyone is stupid. And I feel like when you make a movie, you need to assume everyone is stupid, and you don't need to tell them everything, but don't leave. I love mystery in a movie, but don't leave so many gaps in it that I really can't pay attention to the movie. And I feel like that's kind of what Fantastic Four did. But again, I mean, I want to see it again. It wasn't awful, right? Like we just talked about Edward Norton's The Incredible Hulk. That movie's awful. This is not this is not that, right?
Yeah.
But I do think, and this is, I would like to look back on this in like, 2 years and see how I feel about it. Because when Avengers and Age of Ultron came out, I hated it. And now I really, really like it, But at the time, Marvel was doing that thing where they weren't just showing trailers; they were releasing entire clips from the movie, and the whole movie was spoiled before we ever went to see it. Just like was it LaShawn McCoy? I think it was ruined Avengers Endgame, tweeting, "R.I.P. Tony Stark." Like, it's
Yeah.
these things that are so anticipated and get spoiled for you are tough. So what I would like to do is come back to this movie in like 2 years and see how I feel about it. I'll probably watch it right before Doomsday because I think you should.
Hmm.
But right now, as it sits after two watches, I really did not like this movie.
Well, after this podcast and after hearing your what's your name, Nate, after hearing your take on it, you know, I, I understand that maybe I don't hate it as much as I did going into it, and I will watch it again. But I mean, and learning the comic book stuff that goes along with it, going back and watching it since then, that's going to make the rewatch a lot better for me, I believe, than just going into it being a movie and Marvel lover of just the movies. I just hated it. I mean, I hated it right from the get-go. Ask Alex, man. I saw the retro stuff and I was like entirely not impressed.
Well, and it's funny because he was telling me about the trailer and that he wasn't excited, and I was like, "Are you an idiot? This looks insanely good." And now after the fact, he's like, "Told you."
No, it's fair. Like I honestly, it depends on your flavors. And honestly, like I said, like I love getting to hear different perspectives, and I think it's fair criticisms. I think it's all because again, that's the beauty of film. Like everyone has different perspectives. Like someone can love something and someone can
Yes.
absolutely hate something.
Those
The
are
beauty of
those
it.
are the
And
best episodes of the podcast we do when we don't agree. Those are the best ones.
So going back to
yeah,
a little earlier, Nate, you said, and this is going to DC, but you said that you didn't like this Superman take wasn't, your favorite. I absolutely loved Superman. I said it right from the get-go. This is my favorite Superman of all time. It even beats Christopher Reeve. And I
yeah,
loved the Christopher Reeve, the first one. I loved it. But this beats it. I'm not a big, huge Man of Steel fan.
yeah. No, listen. Listen, I'm 100%. Listen, I took my dad to see it same way. He loved it. Like he was gushing about it coming out of the because he grew up on that stuff. And that's the beauty of it all.
How old is your dad?
My dad is 70,
Oh,
72.
okay, he's about 20 some years older than me, but but I get it. I think the graphic effects, I loved right from the get-go that he plummeted to the earth, and it was freaking phenomenal. But
Mhm.
yeah, we're not talking about Superman right now.
No, no worries. No, like I said, for me, like I said, I thoroughly enjoyed this one. I thought that for me, it exceeded my expectation only because that, you know, the Fox movies set a really low bar. And I think maybe I'm coming
Very.
off the fact that I watched those movies before. Maybe that was my mistake. I watched those movies and then I went into this one. I was like, yeah, this is awesome. And then maybe after a few more watches, I'm not going to like it. But for at least sitting right now as of, Tuesday after opening weekend, eventually in a couple weeks, I'll go watch it again. And see if the magic still hits. And like I said, I saw it on IMAX. So I got to see it on the biggest screen possible. And getting to see it in that aspect and the theater, it just felt very much alive. And I just felt like I was connected in. And again, seeing the dynamic, that was my biggest thing, my biggest takeaway. I wanted to make sure that this felt like the first family. And I
Yeah.
got that from everyone. Like I loved my biggest concern was actually the Thing going into it. And I was nervous about how he was going to be handled. And I thought it was like, man, I hope that we get time with him. I don't want him to be just kind of thrown away because we already have a bunch of other like big characters in it. But I would have loved to see more with him, but I loved his interpretation. I loved every single person. Did others stand out from the rest? Absolutely. Like for me, a lot of people say that Joseph Quinn wasn't great. I thought he was the standout for me. I thought Human Torch was
100%. And his like relationship with the Silver Surfer,
That was it.
That
I'm gonna say that.
that I talked about like Galactus being the best part overall, but his moment with the Silver Surfer and the flashback was whatever, but him,
Incredible.
this is the big difference. It's going to go in two parts here, and it's going to be a little long-winded, but Rotten Tomatoes is the critics are loving this new Fantastic Four, and my friend said this, and I wholeheartedly believe it, and you just said it too. The bar was so low. We've had three absolutely trash Fantastic Four movies that have come out, so this one is finally one that hey, it's not complete trash, and critics are loving it. Critics have this higher than Superman, which to me blows my mind. But this interpretation of Johnny Storm is incredible. The Chris Evans one was cool, right? But he was just the playboy who was also a loyal badass. This Joseph Quinn, I mean, sorry, not Joseph Quinn. Johnny Storm is an astronaut. He's
Yeah.
not an idiot. He is not this just playboy, like whatever. He's an astronaut. He has agency. And in this movie, what he wants more than anything is to be a bigger part of the team and have people trust him. And him taking on the translating of the language and everything,
That was awesome.
it was amazing. And then at the end, when he's going to sacrifice himself for Franklin, like
Mhm.
Johnny Storm was absolutely incredible for me. And we can all do this if we want. If I would tier the four, I would go Johnny, Ben, Sue, and then Reed Richards for this movie specifically for how well I thought at least my thought process on the Fantastic Four, how they played them out, and just how interesting they were.
Yeah, no,
Mm-mm.
absolutely. I would say the same thing. I think that, like you said, Johnny was just like you said, the whole Playboy thing and being the good looking dude. Like, yeah, and for me at least, everyone was talking about Pedro. For me, it was Johnny. I wasn't connected with Joseph Quinn. I kept seeing him. I was like, I don't see it. I don't see it. I don't see it. And then he did it. And that whole entire, like you said, he's an astronaut. Like he ain't just going up into space because he just tagged along. Like, no, he's
Right.
smart enough to be with this team. He's just as maybe not as he's not as smart as Reed Richards, but he's
Sure.
capable enough to hold his own against everyone else. And it just like you feel those moments of like you feel for him. He's alone. Like he's got like this almost like not ignorance. It's almost like this I'm afraid in the word. I don't have the word for it, but he just wasn't being heard. He wasn't being seen, and he just
Right.
was desiring that. And so for me, like I said, if I was to rank him, I'd say Johnny was my biggest. I'd say Vanessa second, Reed, and then the Thing. Only because, like I said, I'm not disagreeing. Like they were all great. I just feel like I wanted more with Ben. I just wanted to see more with him because he's, like I said, I love Ben Grimm. He's one of my favorite characters in Marvel Comics. So I would have loved to just get more with him. But that's just personal
Yeah.
preference.
I feel you on the thing somewhat. What I did like is that we didn't redo what we did with Michael Chiklis and just oh, I'm ugly, no one loves me, like that kind of thing. But we
Yeah.
kind of got that from Johnny. Johnny kind of took up the mantle of that. And I thought that was super interesting. Yeah, Ben wasn't in this movie enough. He was just the brute most of the time and the cook because they were giving us nods of Ebon Moss Backrack being in The Bear, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, we didn't
Yeah.
we didn't get enough with him for sure. But I
Yeah.
thought what we did get was so powerful, and him and Johnny's dynamic together, the cool
Yes.
uncles, was awesome.
100%. I thought that was key. Like I was like, they're brothers at heart. Like they're just like they don't see eye to eye, but they love each other at the end of the day. They bickered,
Yeah.
they fought, they teased each other. It was awesome.
Yep. But cool. We're coming up on that hour, and that's usually about when we stop. So let's get, if you have any final thoughts, you guys have any final thoughts, we'll do it. And then let's go into, how we rated this movie out of 10. So,
So, going back to list mine, I would have to say it's Sue Storm, and then Johnny. And then, I mean, Alex will tell you it's Sue because of different reasons, but
and every single time there's a beautiful woman in a movie, she's his favorite character.
no, that's not true. But no, Sue, and then
Who was your favorite character in Incredible Hulk? Betty.
well, of course. I mean, Edward Norton is a fantastic actor. I mean, I loved him in Primal Fear. I mean, he's awesome.
Gwyneth
But
Paltrow is your favorite
Gwyneth
Iron
Paltrow-
Man.
Oh, yeah, of
Black
course.
Widow's your favorite superhero. I can keep going. I can keep going.
This is what I get all the time, man.
No worries.
But Sue Storm, Johnny, and then the Thing, and then Reed. Yeah, I don't think Pedro Pascal did a. I mean, he's supposed to be the leader, and like I was talking to Alex about that. He's supposed to be the leader, and Sue stepped in, and she's pretty much the leader.
And we're not anti-Pedro here. I mean,
No, no,
The Last of Us is amazing. He was really good in Eddington. I don't know if you saw that yet. He was pretty good in The Materialist. Like, I like Pedro, but
Mhm.
for me in this role, he didn't. He is starting to work a little better talking to people that seem to like him, like talking to you, listening to like the Ringerverse. Like the Ringerverse loved this movie, which I was shocked about. But I'm starting to think maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm the wrong.
No, no, no worry. Like,
no.
listen, you have your take.
Yeah, sure.
You guys asked me in the beginning what my favorite scene was, and um, I got to think of it throughout this whole podcast. I think the best dynamic. I know the Thing and Johnny was awesome, but the best dynamic in this whole entire movie, I think, was Johnny and the Silver Surfer.
Sure.
And when
That is the
when
best.
when he grabbed a hold of that
The
that
board.
that board, and she looked down like t less than 6 inches away from his face, and then when he went back and told that story, that was phenomenal.
Yeah, it
You
is.
know,
It is the best aspect of this movie.
yeah,
Galactus is second for me. Shallowball and Johnny Storm is the best,
no,
and I want more of that. Right?
yeah, yeah, that'd be
I,
awesome.
I want to figure out how she gets back from where Galactus is. Is Galactus in a different universe now, or is he in the same universe, just farther away in space? I don't know.
Uh, yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
So, but cool, man. Final thoughts from you?
Yeah, no, for me, I think, like I said, I loved this movie. I think, like I said, I really enjoyed every aspect of it. I do see, like what you guys said, like some things that I'm gonna go and think about now, having go and watch it for, whatever, how many times I go again. But it's some things I'm gonna look at, and yeah, like for me, it's just looking forward into the future, getting to see hopefully that they're able to land it when it comes to Doom and Doomsday. So yeah, I'm excited for it, and we'll see what happens going forward.
I wholeheartedly know this about myself that after Spider-Man comes out next summer, I am going to be so Marvel pilled again and so ready for Doomsday. It's not even going to be funny. So, uh, this is a little
Um,
dip, but yeah, I'm going to be excited.
Yeah, most definitely. It's definitely a good time to be excited for all this stuff going forward. So, yeah, I would, like I said, for me, I would probably rate it on my scale. I said for me it was like a 9. I rated it very highly. I was giving it again, maybe going back to it, watch it again. I'm gonna rank it a little bit lower, but for me, I'm gonna sit at a strong 9 at least.
I'm going to go see it again too. I would love us to like just shoot a text and see where we are after seeing it a third time. Because right now I'm at a 5. Like I'm pretty low on this movie.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, I was at a 4. Before this, so I definitely want to see it again, and maybe it'll creep up to a 6 or 7 for me. But
That's a big
that's a
hike.
big jump, though. That's a big hope. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see.
But all right, if you gave this a 9, what'd you give Thunderbolts?
I gave Thunderbolts a 9.5. I
Yeah,
absolutely adore Thunderbolts. I thought that was amazing. I thought
so good.
I was super sad that it didn't perform well at the box office, and so they had to like pivot. But I'm glad they kept Jake Schreier around, and he's doing
Yeah,
X-Men, which he's gonna
X-Men,
absolutely
dude. He's the perfect person for X-Men.
1,000,000%. I was between like they were saying between him and Ryan Coogler. I was like one of those two,
Either one.
please.
Do it together. Like
Yeah,
why do we need just one person at the helm? Do it
yeah,
together. Collaborate,
100%.
man.
Absolutely. I'm excited to see what they do with going forward. And now they're saying it's gonna be young and it's gonna be the youth about it. I'm like, sign me up. Give
Yep.
me give me
Please.
give me a great interpretation of Cyclops, and we're good.
Yes, agreed. Because yeah, he's probably the downfall of the older ones to me. All right, dude, you're the last one. What'd you give Fantastic Four on the 10 point scale?
Would say 5.
You're at a 5 too. Yeah. All right, man. Well, hey, I'm glad you liked it. This made this for. I was on a podcast the other day and we all hated it and it wasn't the best. So the fact that someone in here liked it, I really appreciate.
And no worries. I'm glad to be at least a little bit of the optimism here. So
Yeah,
glad to have been able to glad to really hear your guys' take on it too.
sure. Absolutely. But cool. Hey, well, we will see you down the line for more Marvel movies. But that has been Nate from Entertainment Overtime. So plug your page one more time before we get out of here.
Yes, so again, like Alex said, I'm Nate. This my channel is Entertainment Overtime on TikTok. You can follow me on all channels there. I do have a YouTube channel, but it's still under construction. So if you got anything that you like, Marvel movie or anything related, check me out there on TikTok.
Awesome. All right. Yeah. And this has been Aiden, Tony, and Alex over here. And this has been the Real Friends Podcast. And we'll see you next time.